Ladies and gentlemen, I am in the tour bus of Fontaine's DC. Who have we got?
Conor Curley.
Conor Deegan.
I got Conor squared.
Conor Squared.
Yeah, exactly. How's lives, lads? As well.
Really good, yeah.
I mean, it can't not be good. I'm sitting in an actual tour bus. I haven't been in an actual tour bus in forever.
In forever?
Yeah.
Why, when was the last time you were in a tour bus?
I think I was in the Cribs tour bus a couple of years ago,
Oh, nice.
and it wasn't even like doing interviews. I think it was just sort of sitting down the back drinking their beer.
How does ours compare to theirs?
Oh, is this like a pissing contest? Is it?
Well, I just mean, is it dirty?
Is it better than ours?
I think the lighting system is always what, attracts me to a
Yeah.
good tour bus.
I always expect when you come into a tour bus for there to be like just drug paraphernalia and all sorts of like just beer bottles and everything. And you guys are really fairly tidy, and along with it, maybe I'm just going off the old school rock and roll image of the 70s.
Yeah, we're very tame these days, Connect 4,
Yep.
Greens, Granny's Cakes just got thrown out yesterday.
Yeah.
Already.
Snakes and Ladders should be arriving tomorrow.
I mean, it's all kicking off.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you get voted the #1 album of Rough Trade for the year and Six Music for the year. You get Snakes and Ladders.
Yeah, you immediately become a middle-aged person.
I want to start with an early song of yours, so I'm going to blast in a little bit of this.
You know I love that.
So that was Fontaine's DC and Liberty Bell. Is that the first ever single that you guys put out?
Yeah, it is.
What's like the sort of timestamp on something like that?
We released it in May 2017.
God, a lot has happened in a short period of time, really, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Like that Liberty Bell track. Like why was it the first one that you decided to put out of all the songs that you'd wrote?
I mean, we were a very different band at that time. We were a lot more kind of. We still are influenced by these things, but at that time we kind of wore the influences of like 50s and 60s garage rock on our sleeves, And out of all the songs that we had that were that kind of style, that was the one that kind of seemed to be more original or more us, probably because of Grain's singing in it.
Yeah. And as well, it was the first song that we wrote that was about Dublin, and that seemed to be something, once that clicked with us, it just felt like that was a part of us then. It really made us, stood out against the other songs, and it made it seem like the natural choice.
And like the album basically became a sort of do you love me, do you not sort of affair about Dublin City. What was it that sort of made that song stand out? What was the significance of it? Because Liberty is like that's an area or something in Dublin, is it?
Yeah, the Liberties is an area in Dublin where we all went to college and we all lived for a few years. And
what sort of area was it? Like, was it a uni area? Was it a rough area?
A bit of both, actually. It was an area that was starting to become gentrified, but still had its communities, and it would have been a bit poorer, yeah. But it was just really lively, and still is really lively, but I mean a bit more gentrified. But anyway, it's just felt like the real Dublin still.
What about getting that song sort of like recorded and things at the very beginning? Because like I've seen you from the very start. I've seen you about like maybe the beginning of 2018, end of 2017. There was no real growing pains like a lot with you. Like you've obviously like you've changed sound a little bit, and you've like come to know yourselves a little bit better and come to trust your own instincts. But even from the very beginning, everything sounded good. Like there was no real period where a lot of bands go through where everything's a little bit shit, or at least it wasn't on the face of things to me.
Yeah, we were very simple, and I think that we've taken that idea with us now. Whenever we do anything, like that kind of simplicity, like we didn't have tuners or anything. We just tune the guitar, go on stage, play a whole set, and hope that it stays in.
For sure, yeah, we did that for 2 years.
Yeah.
But then it comes to a point when your guitar's gone out of tune during the track, or you guys must have fucked up quite a few times at the start to have got you to the point where you take it a little bit more professionally, no?
I think it just got to a point where Carlos was really pissed off at us for scabbing his tuner at the start of the gigs, and he said, "You really need to get tuners." And then we got signed by Partisans, so we had no excuse to not get them.
Yeah.
It was really that
It was
point.
literally
where
up to getting being signed though, and it's
Man.
funny to think of that. Like.
we literally did KEXP in Seattle, and we didn't have tuners.
Oh, we didn't
me
have
and you-
tuners,
me and
yeah.
Isn't
you.
that mad? Like you,
Yeah.
like Oasis get signed and they get brown Rolls Royces, and you just get signed and get tuners.
That was actually probably the scariest thing. Like that doing that KEXP in Seattle, and it being nerve wracking because of all the cameras and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it was my first time in America as well, and like playing the songs and not having a tuner and just being like, and it was a rented guitar as well, so I didn't know how
How it was going to go down.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
like,
was actually. I remember actually that whenever we finished that, I've never felt that kind of sigh of relief.
I've
Yeah.
seen bands come on my radio show, like when I used to do a thing called the Live Lounge Late, where we used to get loads of artists on and they play live. I've seen some of the biggest artists absolutely crumble, like when they go to play live, especially when they have to play a cover, because obviously playing your own songs quite easy because you've got muscle memory and you're doing it every single night. But when you have to go live on the radio and play a cover of X, Y, or Z, everybody's sort of sitting around there half kind of rehearsed, going, "Shit, this is going live." So when the band began, did it sort of like did it kick off very like naturally? Like it started in BIM, did it?
Yeah, we were all, me, Curly, Carlos, and Green were all in the same class in songwriting and BIM, and Tom was in our year doing drums. And it's kind of I feel like it started with me texting you guys about an idea for a punk, like doing a punk Beatles band. And then we started jamming that, and that became
Was that the text? It was like, I want to start a punk band that sound like the Beatles. So melody and ferocity.
kind of, yeah. And then I said that to Curly one night when we were out drinking. He said, "Man, if you ever want to start that band, give me a text."
Yeah, I think we were all maybe like working on our own songs at the time, so I think it took someone just to kind of do that, being like, "Do you want to work together?" Because I think we were all kind of like, "Oh, I'm working on my own project," and I think like Green was saying to me at one stage, he was like, "I'll produce some of your music for you," or something. But like, we needed.
Can Graham produce? Is he a good producer, or did he just
he's really good.
Yeah, he's
yeah.
really really good.
When you get together though, like if you're all working on your own projects, is it hard to get into that room when you're in the practice room and throw the egos out? Because if everybody's coming in with their own specific bits, is it very hard to initially get into a collective?
Well, when Curly was saying that there, he was kind of talking about when we started off. From when we started off and when we started writing songs that were actually songs with legs, there's a couple of years there, you know.
Really? So what year did you hit the first practice in?
2014 in, was it late 2014 or early 2015? Something like that.
Early 2015, I think. My memory's really bad.
Did you see university through? Did all of you like
Everyone except me.
graduate? Yeah. What happened to you, Curly?
I just was enjoying Dublin a bit too much, and kind of ended up just working in bars and stuff like that. And college life isn't for everyone.
Yeah, no, I know. Like I think I got like a 2.2 after about 4 years of trying at a 2-year degree. So
Yeah.
it hits you. It was a media study, so I'm still working on my microphone, so it hasn't gone completely. It wasn't completely remiss of everything.
Yeah.
Have all of you like sort of worked in bars along the sort of journey?
Not all of us. Me and Curly, definitely the most out of everyone else. But we've all had, you know.
Your manager Trev, like, is the sort of head honcho at a bar in Dublin, isn't he?
Yeah, he manages Garage Bar and Workman's.
Yeah.
All the lads other than me worked the door there.
Yeah.
At some stage.
Mm-hmm.
I was just working in a restaurant in town.
Yeah, that was very recent actually, just for an extra few. Because whenever we kind of left, or whenever we got signed and we were starting to try to put this album together, we were on such low wages like that.
Yeah.
It was really hard to survive, so we did the door and Workman's. We'd take turns and we'd get €50 cash. And it was funny because there'd be people coming in through the door who were like fans of our band. Like,
And you'd sending them away.
Yeah, they'd be like,
Did you have to ID them?
You shouldn't have to do this. You're in a band and all this kind of stuff. And then like, it's it's insane to be like, oh yeah, this €5 to come in.
Yeah.
You know, like taking €5 off.
But that's the fallacy that a lot of people don't understand when it comes to bands and music. It takes, like, I mean, a lot of bands don't make any money for a long time, and a lot of bands don't make any money full stop.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very difficult life, and I mean, you guys are doing really well because you've got like a great fan base, and and you write great songs, and you're getting to that bit, and you're getting to the bit where all bands should be, where they're like, But like, at what point did you stop sort of like working at the door, or is that something that will still continue, do you reckon?
I don't think we have stationary enough lives to be able to work the door of anywhere other than a door of a,
Do-
door
do-
of a hotel room. Like,
Yeah. Maybe
the
you
door
could-
of this bus, maybe.
Maybe you could, like, tonight we're in Brighton. Maybe you could like do the door on the way in, just like
Yeah, yeah,
ID
yeah.
people going.
Yeah. I always wanted to be a
Good idea.
bouncer, actually. You know, I was going to wait for a few years, but could start early.
These are kind of like these are all really blow-ins, really, into Dublin in one shape or form, right?
yeah.
Where's everybody from in the band?
Well, the great irony of the situation is that while I might be known as the Mayo one and Tom is the Mayo one, we're the only ones who were actually born in Dublin.
Right. Yeah.
So, me and him were born in Dublin. I was born in Hollis Street, and he was born in the Rotunda. You were,
I'm from Monaghan.
yeah, he's from Monaghan.
Yeah.
Carlos is from Spain, and Green was born in Barrow and Furness,
Yeah.
in the north of England.
Carlos from Madrid, just not
Yeah,
to give him the
he's got
completely
the-
general. He's just Spanish.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
He's from Madrid.
He's
Sorry.
Carlos definitely has the best. He doesn't have much of a Spanish accent about him, does our Carlos? Does he?
No,
No.
He developed the Mayo one, I think, he latched on to the Mayo one pretty quick.
He moved in with Tom and then very quickly adopted the Mayo accent.
Yeah.
But then with the record, it sort of is so much around about growing up, not growing up, but sort of like about Dublin City and the experiences you've had within it. Does it give you a unique viewpoint, not being from there?
You know, my mum moved to Dublin when she was around my age as well, and she says to me now, as part of her advice, that people in Dublin think they know it all, but they never know the names of the streets when you're asking for directions. And I think that's pretty true to anything about Dublin, really. Like, when you just move there, you kind of see the trees for the leaves, and experience. You're not as used to the people and the way they talk and the beautiful things about that, or the negative things about the inequality for different people in their lives. Homeless people or addicts. So you really are an awful lot more open to it. Like, I remember my little sister moved up, and she was heartbroken when she first moved up because she was stopping at every person who was asking her for money, and
And she's probably skint by the end of the week.
so she didn't know what to do because she was so open-hearted. But it's just one of the tough things about living in a city, that you get used to it.
I find that when I moved to London, it's very, very similar. Like, you would stop by any homeless person, give them money. You'd be on the tube. You'd be speaking to people on the tube, and they think you're a psychopath. You'd be like going, "Hello, how's it going?" And they'd be like going, "Are you going to stab me? Fuck off." But
it's nice though, that kind of
But you've only
naivety almost.
you only have a certain amount of time to have that naivety, and it's only about a year or two before you kind of put the blinkers on a little bit to what's kind of going around it,
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really sad in ways, I mean, that you have to close yourself off emotionally from people around you, and that you're faced with people asking you for change every day, or people who are addicts, this kind of thing, because of the inequality. Like, there's nothing that anyone does about it, and it's just always a constant. And it's something that we thought about a lot when we were writing our album, like, that the fact that it's every day and it's cyclical, and that you're trapped in that situation.
Is it endemic of Ireland in 2019? Like, for somebody listening who's never been or wants to know what it's like, is it a positive place to live? Is it a negative place? Is it a backwards place? Like, I kind of feel on one hand you'll have the Repatriate movement, and on the other you'll have the massive corporate greed.
I mean, like, there's definitely some positives in the way that the youth in Dublin seem to be trying to invigorate a lot of social change, but it's kind of hard to I find it hard to answer that about Ireland sometimes, because we have been so thrown all over the place. You know, it's hard for me to gauge what it's actually like anymore. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, the answer, if I asked any of my friends, sure, it's all a bit of crack. You're like, no, it's really not.
I think Irish people got very used to finding the humour in the blackness and the bleak, and I don't think that what happens today in Irish society is any different emotionally than what happened 200 or 300 years ago for us. I think that we've come to learn to accept negativity as a part of life and to find some humour in it. I think that's what your friends are doing.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of my favorite writers use that humor. Like Flann O'Brien would be one of my favorite writers. He's a sort of writer from Strabane, who like, grew up in Dublin, and some of the stuff, like, I mean, like, it's so dark, but you're splitting your sides laughing about the real shit situation that this family are in or whatever. And I think that's sums it up perfectly. Like, you like, the Irish sort of literary way is to sort of find the light in the dark.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite a thing to have as your cultural identity. You know, I mean, it's not exactly all roses, but it's definitely good for dealing with the more negative things in life in a positive way.
Big time. I wanted to talk about a little bit about the sort of influences that went around the album, sort of sonically, because a lot has been made about the sort of literary side of the band. I definitely do want to sort of touch on that as well. But like, when you joined and you were all bringing your sort of music to the table and you were sitting in the pub and you were like, go and listen to this, listen to that, what were those records?
For me anyway, it was a lot of music that I was discovering at that time. Prior to that, my music taste was kind of, I don't know, very vague of certain more kind of acoustic things that I was into. But then whenever I started listening to, I kind of went back chronologically and started with like Buddy Holly. You know?
See, when I first saw you play live, I thought you had that kind of like an Americana style to you. Like, I think I saw you play in the bar that Trev manages. What's it called?
Workman's.
The Workman's. To like about 100 people or whatever, and it had that sort of rockabilly kind of sound to it.
Yeah, I was wearing the glasses back then as well, the thick
Buddy
black.
Hollies, yeah.
But and then like 60s garage, you know, and then like the Stooges was like a massive one for me. Listening to Raw Power, I think that was like, whenever I lived with Green and Tom for a while, I remember they had that album and I'd listen to it on the vinyl player and it like blew my head off, like the guitar playing and the production, like everything's just ramped up to, you know, turns red. Like,
I think they're like the Stooges are one of those they're one of those bands that come along once in a lifetime.
Yeah,
like having a guitar player and having Iggy Pop in the same band's ridiculous.
I mean, like we were listening to Funhouse backstage 2 shows ago.
Yeah, it's crazy how good that album is.
Oh, it's like, it's insane, you know. Scott Williamson or whoever's playing guitar on that album is just screaming, you know.
Yeah.
Just singing, like.
What were the sort of bits that you were bringing?
Well, to be honest, when we formed the band, I was listening to a lot of Motown stuff and a lot of soul.
Mm-hmm.
And my experience of the start of our band was us getting into loads of bands together. So we got into Oasis and Pistols and basically everything that Trev plays at the Workman's, he introduced to us. Like, he would have introduced us to Happy Mondays and Primal Scream and The Fall.
Is that not quite late in life to get into Oasis? Like maybe like Oasis have kind of always been in my periphery.
I think they kind of had this like weird kind of dry off period after they were like really big, where no one really wanted to say that they listened to Oasis until like, I don't know.
Yeah, like I mean, out of all of the bands that you'd mentioned, I think like Oasis and Happy Mondays kind of shocked me a little bit. Like I just didn't have his penned as Oasis heads.
I think that there's something we wanted to take from every band that we listened to in those times, and there was something about the ambition that Oasis had really early on. That the ambition was even so genuine that it was sometimes even in their songs. That really really inspired us, because we were in Dublin in a culture of bands just starting after all that folk scene of like folk troubadour, singer songwriter, and they're all very self-deprecating. And you know, the culture would be show up to a gig and someone would talk to the microphone and go, "Okay, my name is this thing, and these are my songs, and thanks very much for coming." And they're all very humble, and they're all, you know, self-deprecating, as I said. But that's no attitude for a rock and roll band to have, I don't think. And I think you know, when you see there's no reason that you can't be happy with the music you're making and confident in the music you're making and think that you're good, like.
Yeah, I think it, like
bad.
as a nation, we are very quick to put each other down when somebody's doing quite well. Like, but you don't come out in interviews the same way that like maybe Oasis did back in the day when we're going to be the greatest band in the world. It feels like your confidence is more behind closed doors. It's more private than that.
Yeah, thankfully.
No, it definitely is. I mean, like after our first rehearsal, like I remember Green saying that we are the best band in the world or something. I remember that was like so awkward for me to be like, yeah, we are the best band in the world. I think I'm not sure. I'm sorry if I'm.
Yeah, it was so weird. We were all starting saying it as a joke, but even though we were saying it as a joke, I did feel really uncomfortable saying it at first. Yeah, and then it just becomes normal, and then it starts to become like a mantra that you said we said to ourselves. We started to take it a bit more seriously. Yeah,
probably like it definitely kept us doing music. You know, like
but if you want to be the best band in the world, then at what stage in your career are you at now, and how much can it grow?
I don't think how much do you want it to grow? It's not really about the end point. It was the fact that it was at the start. Like I don't really care about where it goes.
Yeah, like I felt like we were in the best band in the world when we were doing a sound check in Roisin Dove. Like I remember us playing. Was it like a blues jam or the Stones or something? And just the way it felt to play just made me feel like we were the best band in the world.
But does that change? Like now that you have, I mean, whether you sort of care about it or not, you have like the validation of, you know, certain publications and certain radio stations and certain record stores, like with the #1 albums and all that. Does that validation mean that you're on the right track, or is it something that kind of just is coming with it?
I'm not really sure.
I mean, I am asking you this about maybe 5 days after you just found out the Six Music and the Rough Trade thing, so maybe it's not long enough time for it to digest. But is the confidence the same? Like, as in, like, from the first practice till right now?
I think it's the kind of stuff that you can appreciate and be thankful for, but that you shouldn't really take to heart too much, because I think it's just kind of negative pressure, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think it's healthy ego. Like, I think there's a difference between someone being self-confident in the art they're making and the way they express themselves, and then you know, getting their sense of self-worth from someone else. And I don't think that's while nice to get, is important or good for you to do, to take on board.
I can't wait till you get nominated for a Brit Award and get up and don't accept it. Actually, that's a question there.
You said it, not us.
Well, I mean, like an Irish band who are very proud of being Irish. If you got nominated for a Brit and won it, would you accept it?
That's definitely never crossed my mind. But
I never thought about it.
You're putting some thoughts in my head now.
I'll tell you what, you don't have to answer it. I'll go past it just in case. Is traditional music something that plays a part in the role of the band? Like, the traditional, you know, as in traditional sessions and, you know, rebel music, Irish rebel music. Is that something that you play or talk about?
Traditional music is definitely a massive catalyst for us, you know, whenever we got seriously into Luke Kelly and the Dubliners, and to honestly feel that music, and it really helped us because we wanted to have that influence on our own alternative, you know, guitar music, to be able to have that and make it different, you know. And the Pogues as well was
the Pogues are I can out of most things I can hear a lot of Pogues in your music, specifically the last song on the album. Is it Dublin City Sky?
Yeah.
It's I think that's a masterpiece of a tune. Like, it's my favorite. It's my favorite track on the whole record. I think it's very incredibly emotive. I'm sorry to hear about your troubles in Barcelona. You got all your gear nicked.
Oh man, this stuff happens. It happens to so many bands, and we didn't get any instruments robbed. You know, it's just stuff that, you know, can be replaced, laptops and stuff like that.
But like, I mean, the feeling of having to go on and do a show after having all your stuff nicked must be like, well, what am I coming back to? What am I wearing tomorrow?
Definitely felt the more aggressive songs anyway, for sure. But
Did you play a little bit harder on that Barcelona show?
Definitely, yeah. Definitely. Drank a little bit harder as well.
Yeah, I'm sure he's did. We touched on it earlier on, the sort of KEXP session in Seattle. Am I saying that right? I always feel like I get my like
you got it.
my
KEXP.
my acronym KEXP.
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 I feel like I get my acronyms wrong, especially with America. There's so many of them. It's
Yeah.
KCRW Eagle here in the morning. That felt like something that was a real catalyst for you lads, like a real sort of starting off point almost for outside of Ireland, anyway.
Yeah. It was one of the really big moments when we used to have weekly meetings with Trev, and he'd bring us up to a room in the Workman's in the middle of the day and tell us what had come in, and it might be, you know, an interview with somewhere or a gig somewhere. And we really had only played London twice, and everywhere else we played was just around Ireland, so we hadn't really done much yet. And he said, I just got an email from a guy called John Richards, who's a host on KEXP, and he says he loves Boys in the Batterland, and if you can find your way over to Seattle, I can guarantee you a session. And so we hadn't really gotten much interest at that time yet.
I think I remember speaking to Trev before this, because he was saying that you were about to go over and do it. I think you were playing a gig in Cork, maybe. And yeah, so how did you get over to sort of Seattle, and where did it take from there? Sorry, I cut you off.
Honestly, Trev lent us money for the flights, so he's our saviour like that. We got the visa waivers and pretended we were... Oh no, do you know what, actually? They wouldn't have let us go over unless we got working visas. So KEXP invented a competition for us to enter so that we could go over on the visa waivers. And so there's now a competition for international bands to go over. It's a real thing.
Yeah, their lawyer like found some loophole
found a
because
loophole,
they'd had trouble with it before.
Jesus Christ, like how much did this guy really want you to play on his show? I don't think, like, I mean, I've from doing radio for about 7 or 8 years, I don't think I've ever invented a competition for a band or challenged a legal loophole.
You know, I think it was one of their... it was a movie in their mind, and that they finally got to defeat their nemesis, that is the American government.
US border control.
The US border control, yeah, because who was the band before? Soviet.
Yeah, the
Who-
Italian band, are they?
I don't know, but it was
Yeah.
Soviet anyway. They weren't let through, and we were going over for KEXP, so it had been happening for a while.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's gotten...
It's the same with South by Southwest as well. A lot of the bands that try to go over there usually get in some kind of trouble because they don't have the right paperwork with them or whatever. But
It is mad, like, because, like, I mean, for a band at your situation, then it's not like, even if you were getting paid, it wasn't going to be more than $75 or $50. Like, it's not going to really do much to you. Like,
Yeah.
how have you found, like, playing in America? Has that been a big thing for the band, or?
it's kind of cool. I mean, like, it's kind of just like starting over again, I suppose. You know, like we're playing like 500 caps rooms, so it's, whereas like over in, like, we just played in Kenchtown Forum. I don't know, like, it's always been a dream to tour America. It probably is for any band, you know, from UK or Ireland or Europe or whatever. But yeah, the last tour that we did was probably one of the most enjoyable tours I've ever been on. It was just organised really well. We did 2 shows in New York, one in Brooklyn and one in Manhattan. They're probably my favourite shows that we played.
I mean, the amount of work that you boys have put into this already, because, I mean, most bands will release an album and they'll tour the album for like 12 months, 18 months, and that's it. But when you're at the very beginning stage, before you've put your first album out, you have to tour relentlessly to get any sort of a fan base there, and then your album comes out, and then it's 18 months on top of it. So I'm sure, like, a lot of you had to put outside things and outside life on hold a little bit to follow this.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the guys have to, you know, they have to almost put their relationships on hold in certain ways. Like, it can be really tough. Like, I mean, I certainly am really looking forward to getting back for Christmas now to reconnect with my family. Like, I feel like I've really drifted away from them. You know, there are sacrifices involved, you know.
is homesickness something that sort of bonds you together? Really, like, I mean, is it can you stave off homesickness when you're in a band with a load of other Irish boys?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, you get really used to being around the guys, so it's like even though you're in a different place, you're kind of in the same place. You're playing a gig every day, and there's the same people around you. So it's actually not as bad as you might think. But
Yeah, you do. You definitely have a kind of family, as romantic as that seems.
I was trying to avoid saying
Yeah,
that.
you do. We're a massive family. We all love each other, and it's all really wholesome.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, like it is hard though. Like just thinking about your family and obviously thinking that you're neglecting those kind of relationships is obviously really hard. But to be honest, being 25 and being able to travel this much, being from where I'm from, is like such an amazing thing, and
Well,
I
if
never
you
take it for granted.
if you hadn't have been on tour with the band and you're a 25-year-old from where you're from, you probably would have moved to Australia by now, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where would you be? I mean, everybody of a certain age either goes to Dublin or fucks off to another country.
Yeah, God, I don't know what I'd be doing. I don't want to think about it.
You do. Like, I've been asked that question myself, and it's like I have no idea. I'm literally doing the one thing that I think that I'm put on earth here to do. Like, the idea of doing anything else is.
I'd be terrible at literally everything else.
Yeah.
Have you
So bad.
have you done other jobs that you've been absolutely shite at? I think I counted, like, I'd done 27 jobs over the years before I started on the radio, and I've probably got fired or sacked from them all. What about yourselves, apart from doormen?
I'm fairly similar. I've had service industry jobs, but I kind of didn't really succeed in it because I have a terrible attitude. Because I was very was under the impression that I was going to make it in music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that confidence is like is what you need, and it does factor into other parts of your life as well. So the album name Dogrel, I've never heard that name anywhere before. Normally, like,
Right.
what does it mean? I'm sure you've been asked this a million times.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
Some straight up journalism here, guys.
Basically,
You heard it here 21st time.
I was reading about old Irish, history, poem forms, and different things like that. And I was reading about the Boer War and in South Africa, and when the Fusiliers were sent over, the Dublin Fusiliers, there was a song written about them and some poetry written about them from the perspective of people living in Dublin for when they left and when they came back. And it was called Dogrel. And actually, I also heard about it. There was this exhibition on in Dublin about flags, and I know that might sound pretty boring, but they were all
Not
these,
if you're from where I'm from. Flags.
they were all these really embroidered flags of different scenes from the Rising and different such things like that.
Yeah.
And the guy who was giving the tour just told just a rhyme about people smuggling guns over the Irish Sea, and he said, "Oh, that's a piece of Dogrel," and it stuck with me, and that's why I looked up the stuff about the Boer War. But anyway, the point is that the idea of it being working class poetry, about being street poetry, and it was really appealing to me because it's kind of like reclaiming this form that is seen as like for the higher classes or for the really well educated. This poem that is taken from its roots as human expression and turned into something as an expression of, like, you're better than other people or you're more intelligent. And that was our approach to poetry when we first started writing those books of poetry years before, when we were just taking back poetry and using it to express what was happening to us.
Did each of you wrote, because for the sort of uninitiated, like, you had two books isn't the right word. There's a word for the style of book that you put out, isn't there? What's it called?
Our label has it listed as a chapbook.
A chapbook.
But I've never heard. That's a very American sounding word.
Is it? I've never heard that before. Maybe that's where I saw it. So your chapbook.
Yeah.
When your books of poetry, your two books of poetry, did you each like? How does this work? Like, did you each contribute poems to it? Like, was this something that everybody in the band did, or
Everyone except me. I can't remember what I was doing. I think
You
I
were
was
in Berlin.
I was in Berlin, and I was working a lot before that. I was writing poetry at the time, but I wasn't involved in the lads putting that together.
When we were making them, we were basically going around the pubs in Dublin, drinking and writing freely about our lives and our feelings, and sharing them with each other and sharing books with each other, and decided that we were going to make a book in a kind of DIY punky way. Just put it all together and then put on an event to read it and sell it and try and get it put in the bookshops around Dublin. And we did actually get it put in a few bookshops and that kind of thing. You know?
it kind of feels like you're almost less of a band thrown together in music college and more of a bunch of kind of unlikely beatniks that have kind of like wandered into each other's life.
God.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that sort of you do have a very beat style along like, you know, writing poetry and playing in bands, and I'd imagine drinking a lot of Guinness as well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
those are very like that. The beats were obviously one of the first kind of subjects, or that was like
Connected.
Jack Kerouac and all those books that so many young people get into now and talk about life. But yeah, that's what it was about. It was just a very free form of writing, and it's kind of very liberating to see to think about like poetry and literature like that, as it not being such a defined thing, and that anything that you say is right.
I spent quite a long time, quite a couple of months when I was about 19, reading lots of Bukowski, and I turned into a right wee prick for about 2-3 months. A right bastard, right?
Should you talk about your dick loads?
Oh, I still do. I still do. I was going to get to that towards the end. We are on a tour bus after all. But that idea of being impressionable and being 19 and taking that in, do you feel that like reading and art in particular can change you as a person for the good or for the bad?
Well, after your story, I can see that it can definitely change you for the bad. I would have thought it was just all positive, but there you go.
There you go. I'm offering up a yin to the yang or whatever, like.
Sure.
But like with when you start reading beat poetry and Kerouac and things like that, does it connect with you in a way that maybe Ireland and growing up didn't?
I think that just gave us a way of expressing our feelings and being okay with them, you know. A lot of the time when you're in school and you're learning about poetry, you're not just learning about the feeling that Yeats is trying to express, you're learning about why this is good poetry or all these poetic techniques. And because of that, it makes it quite academic, and it can put a degree of separation between the idea of it being art as an expression of human emotion or feeling or experience, and changing into a thing of rigidity. And so reading the beats and learning to write in those styles was a method of reclaiming it for us and making it just as pure as it's supposed to be.
Are you telling me that you're not a massive fan of iambic pentameter?
I am
Big pentameter. But like I had English was the only subject in school that I really connected with in a sort of deep way, and when you sort of, because like you read a lot when you're at school. I mean, I did a little bit of a university as well, and a lot of it is around the actual lives. And I found out that I was probably as interested in the poetry of W.B. Yeats as I was around the fact that he had a total hard on for Maud Gonne, and that she wouldn't even touch him with a 50-foot barge pole. Like,
it's so bad out, but we've laughed about that so many times.
Well, and then he ended up with her dog.
I don't think he did. I think he spent his whole life like just pining and pining and pining.
Do you know what the most messed up thing is though? That like Maud daughter's granddaughter holds some kind of event now every year, like to make money off the fact that Yeats was in love with her grandmother and he never got with her. Like, so their family's actually profiting off that now.
Could you
generations from now? That's messed up.
I've always enjoyed the one about Brendan Behan and how he would often come to his own plays that he'd written and would sit drunk and belligerently in the front row of the play, shouting wrong at them as they do it, and calling it shite and throwing stuff at the stage.
I never heard about that.
I
That's
know,
absolutely hilarious, though.
I wish I could do that for our
It's so
gigs.
funny.
Yeah, well, I mean, you'd have to get somebody up to play your part. And
Yeah,
just,
yeah. Then I can be like, wrong.
no, you're not playing it right. Stop getting Fontaine's wrong.
So what's the story? Did he pay into his own play just to do that, or was he put on the guest list?
Well,
Did they know he was coming? Like, that's terrifying.
I think he would just sit down there and just give off absolute stink about it not being the way he is.
Patrick Kavanagh was like that, or was it? He used to go into all the
He used
bookshops
to
around
go into
Dublin
bookshops
and give out to them because his book wasn't in the window and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's such a mad group of
And he would
people.
wreck the place as well.
Yeah, yeah.
You should do that. Like I'll take you up to Resident Records tomorrow morning, and if they don't have the Fontaine's 12-inch on sale, actually my book's for sale in there as well. I'll help you. We'll just go fucking mad, bowl in the china shop.
Okay, I'll hold you to it.
Yeah, we were in there today actually, and we were quite pleasant. So it'd be kind of funny if we went in tomorrow and we were just like, what the?
I've been up all night.
We got some ideas from Philly Taggart.
No, don't name me. So the record's done incredibly. We're all like, I mean, it must be difficult for you. It'd be difficult for me in a way, like, but I've never had to be in this situation, like when you've got people giving you plaudits all the time. Because, like, I mean, I know, like, from myself and a lot of people I know, that you make them very proud of Ireland, that there's a band breaking through, and not only doing that, but you're also opening the floodgates for other bands. Is it, like, do you feel like you've got a sort of a role in that now? Because, like, I feel like you do.
It'd be really great if we did have a role in it. I don't think we can say we can. I think that, I don't know, like, how to talk about that.
Yeah, it's kind of, it seems like an unhealthy thing to kind of take on, and with especially with all, as you were saying, praise and all that kind of stuff. I think we're still at the stage where we just find it unhealthy to kind of dwell on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, there's like serious cases in the music industry with bands, who run into difficulties with mental health and stuff like that. And I find it probably does have to do with the fact that you are getting praised, and then someday, whenever that stops or it goes away for a while, and you're not able to deal with it, or you don't have the facilities to deal with it. So,
and there is a fallacy to it. Like, you can't get praised the whole time and get used to it, because then you're right, when it does stop. But then at the same time, it's when I used to listen to certain DJs on certain stations, and they would say everything was amazing, and they'd say, like, every track was amazing 20 times in a row. By the time you say it, like, the 19th time, you don't believe it anymore. Do you know? You're just like, well, you think everything's amazing. But it must be, yeah. But, like, I mean, like, the sort of bands that you've been bringing through, and that it seems to be in every article written about you, which I quite like. I think it's very positive. Is that they'll write a big piece on Fontaine's DC in the line of Best Fit, or in Billboard or Rolling Stone or whatever it is, right? And then at the end of it, they'll be tagged on 4 or 5 Irish bands.
Yeah,
and it's great.
Actually,
like, it's really good. You don't actually normally get that, and I think that's why that's happening, because the journalists want to create a scene around you, and, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that that definitely is the case. But
people love to pigeonhole things, and it's always journalists, and it's always DJs, and it's always, because it's just easier to talk about, isn't it?
Artists are always going to be frustrated with being pigeonholed. Like, we were frustrated with being pigeonholed into the post-punk thing in Britain.
You're not a post-punk band.
No, we're not.
But everybody calls you one.
Yeah,
that just seemed to be the buzzword of the whole
it's just
last 2 years. But I mean, I think the idea of being like wanting to have a scene for all these bands is great for writers, but it's really harmful for the bands, because if you think about all the really big music scenes like punk and all this kind of stuff, they have a sell by date. They have a,
that's it. Like, a scene shouldn't last longer than 18 months.
Yeah, because then once something dies, then it'd be like, oh, that post-punk band isn't good anymore, and people find it hard to continue on and then relabel themselves. But it's all these people that have put the label on them.
I don't think you are in danger of that. I think since the records come out, everybody knows that there's different textures to the band. like, you know, Sha 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 is a million miles away from Dublin City Sky, is a million miles away from Big, is a million miles away from Checkless Reckless. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like you're a very easily labelled band.
Thank you.
For shame. Can't wait to the post-punk second album.
Yeah, we're going to really dumb it down.
Yeah, really.
We've been
dumb it
taking
down.
all the feedback in.
Yeah.
yeah. It's gonna be so post.
It's so posty, so posty. It must be exciting though, because like you're I'm not sure, like, but your lyrics meld around the music. It's all one thing to me. Like, it all feels like an energy rather than like going, this is put on top of that. That must be exciting going into start a second record now. I know like a lot of people go, oh, you can't talk about the second record yet, but you've had all those songs written for time. I'm sure you're like well into it.
Yeah, we've the whole thing written now.
Dogrel 2.
Yeah, so
How do you know the name of it?
Dogrel 2, yeah.
Yeah. Look who's Dogrel 2.
Electric Dogrel.
Is it exciting, the process? Like, is it like
Writing.
Yeah, as in like writing now, knowing what you know.
Yeah, I mean, we did all the writing pretty much during the summer, and all the arranging. I know, yeah, it was great to get back. It was kind of scary at the start, getting back into that kind of rehearsal space, you know, whiteboard with 20 song names on it, and you just kind of go through every one of them and try and. Everyone has their own vision for what things should do, and we come together. But yeah, our communication with each other is definitely. We found that it was still really easy for us to, you know, work on stuff together. That there was no like weirdness after doing it, because the first album had been written over a way longer period of time, you know.
Yeah. Well, half of the first album had been written over like 2 years, and then the second half was written in about 3 months in the summer.
Was that when Trev was like, you need to get an album finished?
It's when we got signed, so we could quit our other jobs.
Are you okay? Yeah, fair enough.
We could actually just go into the studio every day.
Yeah, and just hammer it out.
Yeah.
You gonna play any live tonight here at
Yeah, we're
Concord
gonna play two.
Yeah.
Ooh, happy days.
We've kind of been playing two at all the shows on this tour.
Changing up the two, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all right. Well, lads, I'll keep you no longer because you've got 2.5 hours till stage time, and I want to go and dump all my gear and come back down and have a few pints and
Nice one.
pogo about.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for coming on the podcast, lads.
Oh, no worries.
No
man.
bother.
Are you gonna pay me that bottle of Buckfast for
Aye,
it, or-
big. As long as you can drink it in one go, really.
yeah, no worries. Yeah.
Right down the hatch.
Must be really small, is it?
It's one of them miniatures.
Yeah.